Imagine you're going about your day, completely unaware that something unexpected is about to happen, something that will totally catch you off guard and change everything. That's exactly what happened to her when she made a discovery that left her in complete shock. You might be wondering, what was it? What could possibly surprise someone that much? Well, let's just say it wasn't something she had ever prepared for. As she opened that box, her eyes widened, and she took a moment to process what she was seeing. 9 inches. 9 inches of something that she never thought she would encounter, let alone in this way. The look on her face said it all: astonishment, confusion, and a little bit of disbelief. What followed was a series of reactions and emotions that she couldn't quite put into words. Was it excitement, disappointment, or was it just the pure shock of facing the unexpected? It didn't take long for everyone around her to notice something had changed. People started whispering, trying to understand how she was going to handle it. And her reaction? Well, let's just say it wasn't what anyone expected. Now, you might be thinking this is all a bit much, but trust me, this moment would have you questioning everything too. So, what did she do next? How did she truly feel about it? Stick around to find out, because this discovery is about to turn everything upside down. Trust me, you won't believe what happened next. As the minutes passed, she stood there, frozen in place, still staring at the object in her hands. It wasn't just the size of it that threw her off. It was everything about it. For someone who had grown up believing she knew exactly what to expect from life, this discovery was a reminder that things don't always go according to plan. And yet, there it was, in her grasp, just waiting for her to decide what to do next. The strange object had appeared out of nowhere. It had been tucked away in a dusty corner of the attic, hidden beneath old boxes and forgotten memories. She had been cleaning out her family's house after her parents had moved, sorting through old belongings when she found it. At first, she thought it was just another odd trinket from the past, something left behind that didn't hold much significance. But once she pulled it out, she knew instantly that it wasn't something you just ignore. What made it even stranger was the fact that her parents had never mentioned it before. She'd spent years in that house and never once stumbled upon this mysterious item. The more she thought about it, the more questions started swirling in her mind. Who put it there? Why had it been hidden away for so long? What was its purpose? As she examined it more closely, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was meant for her, like it had been waiting for her to find it all these years. But why now? She had no answers, and the deeper she delved into the mystery, the more confused and intrigued she became. To make matters worse, it wasn't just the object itself that had her rattled. It was the way it made her feel. Holding it in her hands, there was a strange energy about it, almost like it was alive, like it was somehow trying to communicate with her, if only she could figure out how. She couldn't explain it, but every time she touched it, she felt a weird mix of excitement and fear. It was as if something, someone, was waiting for her to take the next step. But what would happen if she did? What would happen if she didn't? She knew she couldn't just leave it lying there, but the thought of what might come next terrified her. Every part of her wanted to know more, but another part of her wanted to turn and walk away, to leave the mystery unsolved and the questions unanswered. And yet, no matter how hard she tried to push it from her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was about to change everything. The strange object, the mystery surrounding it, and the strange pull it had on her were all leading her somewhere. But where? And was she ready for what she might find? Days went by, but the feeling of unease never quite left her. The object sat on her desk, a constant reminder of that moment in the attic when her world had shifted. She couldn't bring herself to move it, to throw it away, or even to put it back in the attic where she had found it. No, it was different now. It had taken on a strange importance, even though she didn't know why. Her friends noticed the change. They hadn't seen her this distant, this distracted. They joked that she was turning into a hermit, spending all her time alone with that weird thing. But she couldn't help it. Every time they made light of it, she felt even more alone. They didn't understand. They couldn't possibly understand what it felt like to be so inexplicably drawn to something. Her best friend, Anna, was the only one who seemed to notice her growing anxiety. You still haven't told me what it is, you know, Anna said one night when they were sitting together, sipping coffee in her living room. What's going on with you? It's like you're possessed by it. Anna's words cut deeper than she expected. Maybe it wasn't just the object that had her so unsettled. It was everything around it, the mystery of it, the unknown history tied to it, and the unsettling possibility that her entire life might have been unknowingly connected to something she couldn't comprehend. How many secrets had her parents kept from her? Why hadn't they ever mentioned it? The more she thought about it, the more her mind raced. She had to find answers, but every time she tried to investigate, every time she dug deeper, she uncovered more questions instead of answers. A quick search online led her to several forums and articles, some speculating wildly, others suggesting it was nothing more than a simple artifact from the past. But nothing explained the strange sensation she felt when she touched it, the way it seemed to hum with an energy she couldn't define. Then there were the dreams, strange, vivid dreams that filled her nights with distorted images and cryptic messages. In one, a shadowy figure stood before her, holding the object, and whispered words she couldn't understand. The figure's face was blurry, but the voice was unmistakable. "It's yours now," it said. "It always has been." She woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing, every instinct screaming that something far bigger was at play than she could grasp. But no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the dreams didn't stop. The sense of urgency grew stronger with each passing day, as though the object, whatever it was calling to her, urging her to do something. But what? And why her? What did it want? And how far was she willing to go to find out? The days grew heavier, as if the weight of the mystery was pushing down on her with every passing hour. The object on her desk seemed to pulse with an unseen rhythm, its presence more oppressive than comforting. The strange dreams had escalated too. Last night she had woken up with the feeling that someone had been standing beside her bed, watching her. Her heart had pounded as she turned on the light, but there was nothing there, of course. Just the same empty room, with the object sitting silently on her desk. It wasn't just the physical presence of the object that unnerved her anymore. It was what it was doing to her mind. She found herself growing obsessed, obsessively searching for answers, piecing together fragments of forgotten history and obscure references. The more she dug, the more she uncovered bizarre stories and old myths, some too unbelievable to be true. But there was one thing they all had in common. The object she had found, despite how ordinary it seemed, was a part of something much larger, something ancient. Her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was Anna again, asking if she wanted to come over. For the first time in days, she realized she hadn't even thought about leaving the house. She was becoming a prisoner to the object, to the mystery of it. Maybe Anna was right. Maybe she was losing herself. But just as she was about to respond to Anna's message, something happened. The room seemed to grow colder, and the object on her desk, no longer still, began to move. Not much at first, just a subtle shift, as though something inside it was stirring. She stood frozen, not daring to breathe, as the object slowly slid across the desk, as if it had a life of its own. Her hand instinctively reached out toward it, But she hesitated. It was as if the thing was daring her to touch it, to take that final step. For a moment, everything around her seemed to blur, and all she could focus on was the object. Her heart pounded, her mind racing with questions. What was happening? Was this it? Was this what it wanted from her? She could feel the tension building, a sense of impending danger or revelation that felt just within reach, but still so far away. She looked at the object, and in that instant, everything she had been ignoring, all the strange occurrences, came crashing together. It was as if something inside her finally clicked, like a puzzle falling into place just before the final piece was slotted in. But before she could make sense of it, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. She gasped. Her breath caught in her throat as she reached for her phone, the only source of light. Her fingers brushed against it, and for the briefest second, she thought she saw a figure standing at the edge of the room, just beyond the light's reach. A chill ran down her spine. Was it just her mind playing tricks? Or had someone, followed her here? The tension in the air was thick, and the silence was suffocating. Her mind raced, her pulse quickened. There was no turning back now. The answer was within her grasp, but would she be ready for it? Would anyone be? Her heart raced as she clutched the phone, the dim light from the screen barely illuminating the room. The figure, if it even was a figure, didn't move. It stood just outside the reach of the light, as though it was waiting for her to make a move, to do something. She blinked, trying to clear her mind, but the sensation of being watched only intensified. She couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was in the room with her. Then, just as suddenly as the lights went out, they flickered back on. The figure was gone, but the chill remained, clinging to the air like a heavy fog, making it harder for her to breathe. Her pulse was still pounding in her ears as she slowly turned back to the desk, where the object still sat, now completely still, as if nothing had happened at all. She shook her head, trying to shake off the creeping dread that had settled in her chest. Was it her imagination, or had something really just happened? It didn't matter now. She had to make a decision. The object, the dreams, the strange occurrences, it was all leading her to this moment. The question wasn't whether she could keep ignoring it. It was what would happen if she did. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, sharp knock at the door. She froze. Who could it be at this hour? No one ever visited her this late. With trembling hands, she set the phone down on the desk and made her way cautiously to the door. Every step felt like a heavy weight, each footstep echoing in her mind. She opened the door slowly, half expecting to find no one there, just the empty hallway stretching out before her. But there was someone. Standing in the doorway was an older man, his face weathered with age and lined with worry. He wasn't someone she recognized. He looked at her with a piercing gaze, one that made her feel as though he could see straight through her. "I'm sorry to disturb you," the man said, his voice low and gravelly. "But we need to talk." Before she could respond, he stepped forward, pushing past her and into the room without waiting for permission. The man's presence was overwhelming, his aura strangely familiar, yet unsettling. As soon as he entered, the air seemed to thicken, the temperature dropping again. She backed away from him, eyes wide with confusion. "Who are you? How did you find me?" The man ignored her question. Instead, he looked at the object on her desk, his eyes narrowing. "So you found it?" he murmured, almost to himself. "I knew it wouldn't be long." She took a step back, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean? What is it? What's going on?" The man turned to face her, his eyes now filled with something she couldn't quite place. Was it fear? Regret? It's more dangerous than you realize, he said, his voice low but firm. And you're not the only one looking for it. Her stomach twisted. What do you mean, looking for it? Who else is involved in this? The man hesitated, as though weighing how much he should reveal. Then, with a heavy sigh, he spoke. There are people, groups really, who have been searching for that object for decades. It's not just a relic, it's a key to something ancient and powerful. And now, it's in your hands. A cold wave of realization washed over her. This wasn't just a random object. This wasn't some forgotten artifact. This was something much bigger, something that had been hidden for a reason. The man stepped closer, his eyes burning with intensity. You need to understand, the object will not let you go. Once it's found, it starts drawing people in, and it doesn't stop until it gets what it wants. Her mind reeled as the weight of his words sank in. What had she uncovered? And worse, who else was out there, searching for it? As if on cue, her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at it quickly, her breath catching. There was a message waiting for her. The sender was unknown, the message cryptic. They're closer than you think. Don't trust him. She looked up, and for the first time, the man's intense gaze faltered just for a second. It was enough to make her heart skip a beat. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but she still couldn't see the full picture. There were so many unanswered questions, and now she had to make a choice. Would she trust this stranger? And even more frightening, could she trust herself? The man stood there, his expression dark and unreadable, as the weight of his words settled heavily in the room. You're in too deep now, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The object is calling to them. The others will be here soon. Her heart raced, each beat thundering in her chest. She looked at her phone again, the cryptic message staring back at her. They're closer than you think. Don't trust him. Panic bubbled up inside her. Who could she trust? The man's presence was suffocating now, and she could barely think straight. Why me? She managed to ask, her voice shaky. Why am I the one who found it? He hesitated before answering, his eyes flickering with something like regret. You didn't choose this. It chose you. His words hung in the air, thick with unspoken truths. It's always chosen. The key. It's been waiting for someone worthy enough to unlock it. She felt a sudden surge of confusion and fear. Unlock it? What do you mean? What's behind it? He took a step closer, his face hardening. Power. Power beyond anything you can imagine. People would kill for it. And worse, they already have. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room. She whipped around, her breath catching in her throat. The window had shattered, and standing there, framed by the shards of glass, were three shadowy figures. Their eyes gleamed with an almost predatory intensity, and in that moment she knew. They weren't just here for the object, they were here for her. The man cursed under his breath, taking a defensive stance between her and the intruders. You have to go, he ordered urgently. Now! But before she could react, the object on her desk, seemingly on its own accord, flashed brightly, filling the room with an eerie glow. It was as if the object itself had come alive, its power undeniable. The figures hesitated for a moment, taken aback by the force emanating from it, and then, as if guided by some unseen hand, the man lunged toward the object. But as he reached for it, something unexpected happened. His hand, inches from the object, recoiled violently, and he staggered back, clutching his chest. His face twisted in agony, and for the first time he seemed vulnerable, weak. The figures advanced, their eyes never leaving the object. It was clear now, the man had been a part of this all along, but something had gone terribly wrong. The object wasn't just a key to power, it had a mind of its own, and it didn't seem to want anyone to control it. With a final desperate look at the man, she made her decision. The time for hesitation was over. She grabbed the object from the desk and felt a surge of energy pulse through her, as if it were bonding with her, choosing her. In that moment, everything became clear. The object wasn't merely a key, it was hers now. The intruders stopped in their tracks, their faces shifting from desire to something far darker. They didn't expect her to wield its power. And as she stood there, the object glowing brightly in her hands, the man's pained expression shifted into something else, a mix of fear and awe. Don't, he gasped, his voice barely audible. You don't know what you're doing. But it was too late. With a sudden, overwhelming force, the room seemed to collapse inward. The figures screamed, their bodies flickering like shadows, disintegrating into nothingness. And in the silence that followed, she stood alone, still holding the object. But the final twist hit her then. The message on her phone had changed. It no longer read, "Don't trust him." Now it simply said, "You're not the first." A chill ran down her spine as the truth sank in. She wasn't the first to be chosen, and she wouldn't be the last. The eerie silence that filled the room felt almost suffocating as she stood there, the object still glowing in her hands. She had never felt such power before, an overwhelming sensation that seemed to course through her veins. It was as if the object had chosen her, but not for any simple reason. No, it was far more than that. She wasn't just holding it, it had become a part of her, connected to her in ways she couldn't fully understand. The man lay on the ground, gasping for breath, still struggling to regain control of his body after the force of the object's power. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. He looked at her with a mix of fear and something else, maybe regret, maybe admiration. But there was no time for him now, no time for explanations or more questions. The room was still, but she knew the danger wasn't over. The figures were gone, but others would come. They always did. She stepped back, her mind racing, trying to make sense of everything. The object wasn't just an artifact, it was something alive, something ancient. She wasn't sure why it had chosen her or what exactly it wanted from her. But one thing was clear, her life had changed forever. There was no going back. The power she felt now was undeniable, and yet it terrified her. She wasn't sure she wanted this responsibility. She wasn't sure she could handle it. Her thoughts were interrupted as the man slowly lifted his head, his voice barely a whisper. "You can't control it," he said, his words ragged. "No one can." For a moment, she thought about letting him speak, about hearing his side of the story. But deep down, she knew the truth. He had been part of the search for the object. He had wanted it for himself. And now it had turned against him. With one last glance at him, she turned and walked toward the door. She didn't look back. There was too much at stake now. The world had changed, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for what was coming next. But she knew one thing. She would face it, on her terms. Whatever the object's purpose was, it had chosen her for a reason. She was no longer just a bystander in this strange game of power. She was a player. The message on her phone blinked one last time, this time reading, "It's only just begun." Her fingers tightened around the object as she stepped into the unknown. The weight of the future lay heavily on her shoulders, but she was ready. Whatever happened next, she would not be passive. She would stand firm. The object had chosen her, and now she would make her own choices.